Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. The state fair is happening, primaries are over. We're here to talk about maybe a little bit of the next session with Senate Majority Leader, maybe the Senate Pro Tem, Caleb Rowden from Columbia. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be here.
So let's start first looking back. We're going to talk about the U.S. Senate. You're pretty vocal. You've been pretty vocal when I think yourself, Mike Kehoe, Ron Richard, Jay Wasson, leaders of the state that spoke up when Eric Greitens was governor. You spoke up again this summer that said he probably shouldn't be the U.S. Senator, and I think folks were listening.
Yeah, well, I mean, we saw it firsthand at the end of his tenure, clearly not fit to be the governor, did the right thing for himself and for the state by quitting, but nothing had changed between then and now.
Wow, it really wasn't.
I mean, it was the exact same Eric Greitens, the exact same just naked ambition with no understanding or caring about anything else around him, including his wife and kids. So I mean,
I'm
for
somebody
me,
that's had my stumbles in life, right?
Sure.
I've made my mistakes on a grand scale,
as we all have.
And I tell you what, I think I'm a little different for him.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I maybe have a little more empathy for folks, and I didn't see any of that. Shocking.
No, I mean I've said it 5 or 6 times publicly. He's just not a good human being. It just is what it is. So,
let's talk about the state senate elections. You know, overall, you saw a lot of folks that you'd served with in the House and served with as a senator while they were in the House. What was your take on the crop of new senators that'll be showing up?
Yeah, you know, we've talked to most of them now, have meetings, I think, set up with all of them. I do know a lot of them from the House. A couple of them I served pretty close with. You know, I think it's a good crop of folks. I mean, I think there are various levels across the conservative spectrum, but I think everybody in that group generally wants to come in, work together, and accomplish things for this state. I mean, I think that's the thing that we all are trying to do. We didn't get into public service just to yell and scream at each other. We got into public service for me because I've got kids and I've got a community that I love, figure out a way to make the place better. So I do think that is the defining element, at least from what I've gathered from that new group of incoming folks, which I think will be greeted warmly by a lot of folks in the Senate who share those same values.
It was a pretty rancorous campaign. This is the most opposition I've ever seen, a coordinated opposition against sitting senators.
Yeah.
Senators that, like a Mike Burnskater here in Cole County, I would have never thought anybody would have seriously ran against him. And while he won by a comfortable margin, it was a coordinated effort against him, and actually Senator White ended up losing in Joplin.
Yeah, you know, I was disappointed by that. You know, clearly there was a lot of rhetoric around whether or not these guys were conservative or not. Clearly they are. Clearly they've been a part of, been around this place long enough to have taken votes to ban abortion and you know, huge Second Amendment votes, all the other stuff. You know, I do think this election was the first one to break that kind of unwritten tradition and standard of just leaving incumbents alone as it relates to primaries, which, you know, I don't know what that's going to mean going forward. I think Bill White was a great senator. I think he surprised a lot of people by the level of intellect and the level of intentionality he gave
spent more time on that floor.
Approaching issues, and you know, so I'm sad to see him go.
Ask a question. I asked Senator Burnskater. I asked Senator Searport this. Do you believe that members of your caucus campaigned against other members of your caucus in a break of that tradition?
Yeah. I mean, we have proof that they did, which again I think is sad. I think it's unfortunate. You know, I've never done that. I never campaigned against anybody else in any primaries, and you know, it's just it's the thing that has concerned me over the course of time is just continuing to just chip away at these things that have kind of held us together for so long, the things that have made the Senate, another byproduct of term limits, that you just don't share the relational element that you used to.
It's going to be very hard to show up after someone spent $100,000 calling you a rhino or a buffalo or whatever. It's going to be hard to sit in the Senate with them and have that same relationship. There's just no way it wouldn't be.
No, I think that's right. And, you know, hopefully we can find a way. Again, I told somebody this the other day, and this is my position. I'm not sure it's everybody's position, but I care more about making my last 2 years in the Senate impactful for my kids' future than I dislike anyone. Right, so we have to figure out a way to balance all that stuff.
You were handed a tradition, though, that was handed down from kind of the old bulls of the old Senate to Peter Kinder and Charlie Shields to Ron Richard and Mike Kehoe, and they handed that to you. Do you think folks just don't care about those traditions like you do?
I don't think everybody does, but I hope we can create an environment where they understand why those things are important. It's not just to protect incumbents. It's not just to protect, these old guard traditions. We can still do really important conservative stuff while respecting those things. Those two things don't have to be
That's your question.
apart.
I mean, people say, well, you should just line them out. You got the majority. You should just come in with a wrecking ball. I've always thought, you could criticize some of the statesmanship you've extended. Maybe it wasn't returned. That's a matter of opinion.
Most of the time it wasn't. Yeah,
but
okay.
if you'd have came back hard, there would have been repercussions for that too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
there's no magic cure for
no. And when you have pockets within a group that small, when there's a group of 10 or 12 in the House, that's one thing.
Yeah.
And the House is just designed differently.
Made for it.
But we have to figure out a way to coexist. And as a Republican who believes that conservative values are the best way to go for the people of Missouri, if I care more about obstructing than I do getting those things done, at some point we're not going to be in the majority, and that's the worst case scenario for a guy who wants to see conservative values continue to play out for the next 2 or 3 decades in Missouri.
The fact is, the real winner here would be the Senate Democrats.
As of now,
That's who's been the beneficiary.
That's right, no doubt about it.
So let me ask you this. You said a productive session for the future kids. What does a productive session look like?
Well, I think it's coming in and starting early, getting our feet under us early. I think we're going to do some big stuff. We had some stuff outlying at the end of last year that we wanted to get done that we couldn't. The map clearly just took up a bunch of bandwidth last year. Mm-hmm. We're going to deal with curriculum accountability and CRT. We're going to deal with the transgender issue. Those are two issues that we know that 60-70% of Missourians agree with us on. That's just the way that it is. I want to do some stuff to make adoption easier in the state of Missouri. I think in the wake of the Dobbs decision and the overturning of Roe v. Wade, I think the one criticism, I'm pro-life and I'm absolutely pro-life. One thing Republicans don't always get right is what all the consequences of the dominoes are. So let's do better at finding out what those things are and making the world better and life better for expecting moms and for the kids that come as a result of those decisions. All of those things are really important. There's a bunch of other stuff we want to do. I want to be the guy that facilitates progress and success in getting those conservative ideals done.
Let me ask you this. So you come out early and you pass a bill that bans CRT and maybe you address the transgender athletes and women's sports issue. You come out there and that probably is not what the Democrat caucus wants to hear.
Sure.
Then we can't pass the budget.
Yeah.
Are you worried about maybe you have to come in with some tactics that alienate folks and you don't have 18 for anything after that?
Well, I mean, I think it's not an impossibility that we could get to that point. I do think that there are some, at the end of the day, there are still 24 Republicans. We don't, we're not always together. We don't always love each other. But I've had that conversation with Senator Rizzo, who I have a tremendous amount of respect and a great friendship with. The reality of the Senate is unchanged. Just because these guys don't like me or I don't like them from day to day doesn't mean that it's still not 24-10. And so a huge chunk of Republicans sent us here to do those things. And so those are the things we need to do. The people who elected Eric Schmidt and the people who are going to elect Eric Schmidt in November are the people who want us to put our heads down, recognize that Joe Biden has taken us down a really tough road, and do things that matter for them in a conservative way for the people of Missouri. I think we can do that.
If you are one of those folks, I mean, here's the thing. While you could argue that 5 or 6 athletes in a thing isn't maybe the biggest issue of the state, I agree with you. If you get in the truck and drive to Southern Missouri, you drive to Marshall, folks care about it.
Well, and I would even take it a step further in some of these instances. I live in Columbia, and now, as of January, Boone County is going to be the only part of my district for my last 2 years, not the most right-leaning area. But I hear it all the time, on that issue in particular. It's not just Southwest Missouri or Southeast Missouri. There are a lot of people who are struggling with this, and I would tell that to anybody, who disagrees with me on the issues. Like, look, public opinion is just not with you right now.
Let me ask you this. I've seen the Republican Party during my professional lifetime do some homophobic things for political gain, quite successfully. I have watched your career be somebody that has said no to that. It's a different generation of Republicans that don't want to win an election off bashing someone because they're gay. I really believe there's a lot of folks of your generation that share that view that think it's a matter of fairness, not a matter of attacking someone because they're different. They just think it's fundamentally unfair. I think this is the first time one of these issues has came up where I think you can honestly say, I'm not a bigot, I'm not a homophobe, but I truly think this isn't fair.
I had this conversation this morning with a colleague of mine. There is a fundamental difference between compassion. I come from a background of faith, and so compassion is a huge part of my life. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to lie and say that something that is absolutely factual isn't factual, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the distinction that we have to make, is understanding we can be compassionate, we can care for folks in any way that we possibly can, while recognizing that a government solution isn't always driven by compassion. A government solution, or the things that we do in this chamber, aren't always compassion. It's the reason why we talk about Scripture. You know, Jesus took most of his words at the church and not toward government, because it's not the government's job to do these things. It was the church's job. It was the people that make up the church to bring forth that level of compassion. We all get that wrong from time to time, and I'll continue to wrestle with it probably for the rest of my life. So
tell me of this crop of new senators, pretty large crop of new senators.
Yeah.
Tell me somebody that maybe folks don't know that you think somebody's keeping an eye on.
You know, I think they all have their strengths. I've gotten to know Travis Fitzwater is probably my closest friend in that group.
Hell of a campaign he ran.
Great campaign. You know, the folks who ran his campaign did a heck of a job. And look, he's a guy that's just, he's not the flashiest guy, and he's kind of like me. You know, he's probably not going to impress anybody. He's never probably going to be the president of the United States. But he's a guy who cares a lot about his community and works really, really hard to do things for his community. He's a good one. Curtis Trent is another one who, you know, for me, I have a good relationship with. Likes to put his head down and get stuff done.
I think Curtis Trent's going to be a very good senator.
I think he will too.
He approaches things very intellectually. He's got a comment. He runs a cool engine.
Yeah.
I think Curtis Trent's going to be a very good senator.
I agree with that.
I so much appreciate your time. Hope you'll come back and talk about it as we lead up to session.
You bet.
We'll be right back. Our opinion maker panel, Jennifer Bukowsky, will tell you what she really thinks, and she really will, after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople, while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Your energy needs are changing. That's why at Ameren, Missouri, we're not waiting on the future. We're building it with the Smart Energy Plan, advancing thousands of projects across the state, helping reduce emissions through cleaner energy sources, boost reliability with self-healing equipment, and better withstand storms with new composite poles. Moving Missouri forward and bringing us all a little closer together. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to Week of Missouri Politics. Our opinion maker panel time. Let's talk about the elections with Locke Thompson, the prosecuting attorney from Cole County. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Scott.
James Owen with the New Missouri. First time on. I can't believe this. We should have done this already.
It's way overdue. Great to be here.
Matt Thompson. Now, no kin, or do you claim kin if you get pulled over in Cole County, or how's that work?
I claim kin to every Thompson, depending on what position.
He knows what's up. Chief of Staff to Dave Schatz, thank you for the hospitality. Jennifer Bukowsky, I can list your titles. My intellectual crush. Tell me what you thought of Tuesday night.
Tuesday night was good for Missouri. Like, we sent a solid candidate to the United States Senate, but now looking at trying to take over in November, the United States Senate is looking like Nevada is the one we have to win, because we've made some maybe not ideal choices in Pennsylvania and Georgia as to who to nominate for the United States Senate.
So tell me why Eric Schmidt was the right guy. Why do you just take all the policy from the political side? Why do you win?
Well, we are a heavy Republican state, but if Eric Greitens had won that, it could have been in jeopardy. Roy Blunt's seat could have been in jeopardy. Thankfully, now we don't have to worry about keeping that seat red, and we can focus on other races.
Matt Thompson, break it down. I mean, you've been in the campaign world. The fact he won, I think if you watch the show, I probably thought he was always going to win when folks really came down to it. But he won by a lot. Why did he win?
I think they ran a really efficient campaign. He had the right team behind him. People had won statewide races before. They spent their money efficiently and wisely, had some money come in. There were a lot of people that didn't want former Governor Greitens in office. and they spent against them well, and Schmidt kind of came out unscathed. Not a ton of money was spent on the negative side against him. There's not a lot to say.
AFP went to work hard.
Yep.
I mean, they knocked a bunch of doors, sent a bunch of mail. I've never seen an outside group be that, especially an organized one like that. I mean, they came to play.
Yep.
Locke Thompson, you're an attorney. Of course, you heard folks that maybe criticize some of Schmidt's tactics, but I'll tell you, the people of the state wanted a fighter, and when you win by a landslide, it's hard to argue with all of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think Eric, again, ran a fantastic campaign, and I think there was an awful lot of maybe some animosity still toward Eric Greitens, and I think at the end of the day, he outworked everyone and was able to pull it out.
James Owen, tell me this. You're a Webster County guy. He was able to win everywhere except Congresswoman Hartzer's home area, which she did well in. He was able to win in all parts of the state. You wouldn't necessarily think a St. Louis guy could run so well in Webster County, but he cleaned up everywhere.
Yeah, I think when you look at the way he was able to use his position as Attorney General to take on these issues that people were legitimately interested in and concerned with, and trying to build himself not only as a platform for his job, but also for this campaign. I think that people saw that, they liked it. But moreover, I do think you gotta give credit to the people who worked to bring down Eric Greitens a notch, because I talked to a lot of people in Webster County who wanted to vote for him at the start of this cycle, and they didn't by the time it was done, because they saw the ugliness that is a part of him, and that they didn't want to have anything to do with it.
As a guy that can observe this maybe a little more scientifically, because you might not have felt the need to take a Republican ballot.
Right.
I think maybe it always looks like Eric Greitens has maybe more supporters than he does, because they're always like the loud, obnoxious guy screaming.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that they're the people that really kind of gravitate to the online nature. I think Eric Greitens really did try to find the sort of national personalities that are appealing to people who, kind of engage with politics on Facebook and on other forms of social media. But in the end, it wasn't enough. I think people just really looked at the records of those candidates, and they decided that Eric Schmidt was going to be their guy.
So tell me this. I don't think that the race is over. I think Eric Schmidt's going to be very hard to beat.
Right.
Trudy Bush Valentine, I mean, that's Gussie Bush's daughter.
She's got a name, and I think also the reason that she won the primary is because, and without getting into kind of optics and visuals here, but she's a woman, and I do think that
matters.
And I think with everything that's gone on this summer at national politics, that for suburban voters who might be on the fence, who might be conservative but don't like how certain things have gone, that kind of symbolism might matter to them. Whether it does enough for her, I don't know, but I certainly think it keeps her in the running.
Tell me this, former Senator Danforth, he's got a guy he's running. He didn't like his pick with Josh Hawley. Now I don't know what his views are on Eric Schmidt, but he's got a guy running. It just is, it feels as though Senator Danforth looked around to his crew of friends, all Ivy League St. Louis lawyers, very wealthy elitist, and instead of trying to pick somebody that a guy swinging a hammer in Sullivan, Missouri might like, or that's at the Sullivan Bowl today, he picked a guy he'd like.
Oh, and he picked him again, not in Missouri, but in D.C. Danforth is Missouri's #1 rhino, and it is so frustrating to me that he's backing this candidate. I don't think the guy stands any chance. I think Schmidt wins this easily.
I mean, his hope would be to spoil the race for the Republican, right? I mean, that would be conceivably the best he could do would be to try to draw 15, 20% and try to keep the Republican from winning. I think if Senator Danforth would have picked a person that might be a little more palatable to Missourians, and if last time you picked you an Ivy League lawyer and you're not happy with that pick, you wouldn't pick you another one. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think everybody knew exactly where former Senator Danforth would go with this, and it's not something that rural Missourians and people where I grew up want. They want a working class person, they want a fighter. I think Schmidt pulls it off. I don't think there's any spoiling this race.
Locke Thompson, if Mr. Danforth's handpicked boy showed up at High Street Pub with those soft hands and that Ivy League diploma, I guess they'd serve him because Carl's a nice guy, but that'd be about as much support as he got, right?
I would tend to agree with that. Eric Schmidt comes across as a genuine, down-to-earth guy, and I think that's why he did so well in rural Missouri. I don't see Senator Danforth's guy making any kind of dent in what Eric Schmidt's going to do in the fall.
It's almost funny. It's almost like all of us. If we're the DJ at the party, we play the music we like from our top plays on our phone. It's almost like instead of him caring about, what would a person in Niangua think? He's like, well, what would I think? I'm sure they'd like what I like, and I don't think that's going to work.
I don't think it's going to work. And in fact, when I see statements that is his name Eric Wood? What's his name? I don't
John
know.
Wood.
John Wood.
January 6th, John Wood.
So when you see what the statements he puts out about President Trump, it certainly seems like maybe instead of like trying to peel off people from the Republican ticket, he might be trying to peel off people from the Democrat. Not that anyone needs to do
I have
that.
a theory about this.
Okay.
Elitism is not just in the Republican Party. There are plenty of Democrats, especially the size of the state party and Democrat side is not that large. Right. And there's a lot of it is elitist. A lot of the places, a lot of Senator Danforth's neighbors are Democrats. And I'm not sure that an elitist lawyer, an Ivy League lawyer, doesn't peel off a Democrat for every 3 Republicans they peel off.
I think it's very possible, and I certainly think when you look at some of the people in St. Louis politics and Kansas City politics and how that gels with rural Democrats and basically decimating any form of rural Democrats that we've seen in the past 20 years, and no one is going to try to fix that. And so I think that's parties in the wilderness.
Hypothetically, if you had Gussie Bush's daughter playing Here Comes the King and tossing out Bush Lights, that might play well. At least maybe it doesn't win Butler County, but maybe you get 20, 25%. But if you're just talking about abortion, how about that?
I don't think that. I mean, you can look at the outcome of what happened in Kansas. I think that was a very clear-cut question about that very topic. But when you're talking about a candidate and whether you talk about that being one of the main positions she's talking about, I still just don't think next to a Democrat, next to that D, that's going to matter for people and how they vote.
So the federal government doing some things. Passed another spending bill, this time dealing with energy. Tell me what was in it. What's in it for Missouri?
And this is something that Renew Missouri, our group, has been working on for the past 2 years, particularly on the portion of this $369 billion investment in clean energy, $40 billion of which is going to go to rural electric cooperatives. So you're talking about the opportunity, a voluntary opportunity, not something that the co-ops are going to be required to do, but to be able to take money, elect to take that money, to transition to clean energy, to transition to being able to work on things like energy efficiency, trying to put that into jobs in those communities. I think that's a real opportunity for the co-ops here to kind of fulfill their mission that was set in the 1930s of continuing to modernize rural Missouri and rural America, because that was a big investment too, and one people were very skeptical about at the time, but it worked, and it
worked on every level.
Yeah.
Tell me about this bill. I mean, I'm not an economist, but I've managed to have enough beer money when it comes Friday afternoon. They talk about inflation, and they say one of the causes of inflation was spending a lot of money. Why not spending more money?
Yeah, the spending addicts in D.C. are screwing over our kids again. When I was born, the U.S. debt per capita was $3,200. A baby born today, the U.S. debt per capita is $91,350. Thanks, kids. We'll be reckless and irresponsible and spend all this money. Meanwhile, the greatest threat to our national security, I think, is our debt, because we can't be safe if we're not rich, right?
Tell me this, though. Now, when COVID hit and there was a global shutdown, not just America, but a global shutdown, there was some policies put in place by President Trump and his economic team that I thought lessened the blow. But maybe the real blow, instead of getting the economic blow then, we're going to take it now with inflation. But it seems like we're kind of past COVID, and they're still spending.
Right. I mean, the original spending bills were calculated to keep small businesses alive so that the economy could kick back into gear and thrive again. The additional ones that Biden's tacked on just dumped helicopters full of cash on the populace, and that is exactly what led to the inflation that we're facing right now. So this Inflation Reduction Act is just adding fuel to the fire.
So, Matt, it just feels to me like they probably know the House of Representatives will not be ran by Democrats when they come back in January. Maybe the Senate, maybe not, but the House is, if you were a betting man, you would bet that the Republicans would take over. And this is like the last things they can get done while they have all the reconciliation tools.
Yeah, I think it was the last search for a win. It's typical DC politicians trying to get short-term gains, and that's going to cause Missourians long-term pain. You're not going to fix inflation by capping prices, doing more tax audits on Missourians, and dumping money into the economy. It's just not going to happen.
I've seen that. The old boys now firing up at IRS. I don't think it's going to go. I think it's going to go that well.
I don't look at this as anything other than a last-ditch attempt to launder the reputation of a flailing president right now, and I think it's just one last-ditch effort to save them in the midterms.
While we're talking about folks that are leaving, You've got Eric Schmidt that's likely leaving across the street of the Supreme Court building to go to D.C. You've got Scott Fitzpatrick probably leaving the second floor of the Capitol, going to the auditor's office. So you look at this field of Republican lawyers. It's not as deep as you would think. You've got a Tim Garrison. You've got a Kurt Schaefer. You go through this list. Give me some guys that you think could fill the job.
Obviously, Garrison's a name you're hearing a lot right now. I've heard Andrew Bailey a little bit as well.
This search may start there.
Chris
and decide how it
Limbaugh's.
goes. Chris Limbaugh.
It may. Chris Limbaugh's name obviously comes up. Senator Luke DeMeyer, I think I've heard his name mentioned as well. So,
All right, give me a little news here. We talk about the next wave of Republican attorneys making a name. You've made a heck of a name. Beat an incumbent, took over the office, done well.
Sure.
Is it a conversation you'd be open to?
I would certainly be open to that conversation. It would be an honor to be even considered for that position. I do enjoy being the Cole County prosecutor, and I am fortunate enough to not have an opponent right now. I'm so essentially guaranteed another 4 years, and I'm just looking forward to continuing to move that office in the right direction.
We came close to making news. Jennifer, you're highly involved with Republican attorneys. Give me some folks you think would be good.
I've got a number of friends I think would be great attorneys general. Bailey, Ellinger, Grime, Scharf.
Scharf,
And
yeah, he's making a
Schaefer.
push. Yep.
But if I were Governor Parson, the only one I would really pick is Kurt Schaefer, because Kurt Schaefer is not only ready to take over the office and run it well on day one, he's also ready to run for office on day one. He's run statewide before, he's won elections before, he's got a donor base
Kurt's
already
tough.
in place. He'd be fantastic, and he's a friend of mine. All these guys are friends of mine, but I think Kurt would be the one I'd go with, because we've had 2 different attorneys general leave for the United States Senate, or we will, in 4 years. We need more stability in that office. We need someone that could hold
And
that
I do
office
think Kurt
more
has a
than the next
passion for
2
the
years.
office. I think Kurt has a passion. He worked in that office. I think he has a passion for it.
Oh yeah, I ran for it before, and we need someone that we know will be there more than 2 years. We could have an ugly primary if you put someone into place though that's never run in for office before.
With a minute left, Matt, who won the week?
I'm going to go with Senator Holly Rader. Her book, Cinder Girls, came out this week.
Yeah.
Anytime I get on Twitter, I see people talking about it. If you don't know her story, I'd recommend checking it out. You'll understand why she's the conservative pro-life fighter she is, and why I think she has a very bright future in politics.
Tough as nails and can drive that LND with a smile.
Yep.
Who won the week?
Jeff Rowe
Yeah,
won
he
the
did.
week.
He did.
I mean, Roe and Trump have had a rocky relationship for many years now, but at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Roe run Trump's campaign in 2024.
Who won the week?
I think when you look at the recreational marijuana ballot initiative that's going to be coming up in November, the dispensaries who now no longer have to do all the paperwork and pretend to be doing that for medical purposes, I think they're the winners this week.
Who won the week?
I'm going to go with the state of Missouri, nominating Eric Schmidt as the Republican candidate. I think he's going to keep Missouri red.
Good man. I'm going to say the St. Louis Chamber of Commerce. They put on their annual Illinois versus Missouri softball game. Missouri, by the way, won 8-6. A big complete game from Dean Plocker. But what a great event, brought together folks from all parties, different parts of the state, of both states. Did an excellent job at Busch Stadium. We'll see you next week from the State Fair with Governor Parson on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and Sterling Bank.